I want to go over how I made a 24/7 live stream for YouTube using DigitalOcean. Recently, there's this new trend of having a 24/7 Lo-fi stream that you can code or relax or study to. So here are two examples, right? First is this Lo-fi girl, which I'm sure most of you have already seen. And basically, this is a live stream that's been running for a couple weeks, maybe even a couple months now. And Joma did a variation of this. This is an animation of him coding with some lo-fi beats in the background. Inspired by these types of lo-fi live streams, I wanted to create my own. I made this night sky animation and I'm playing classical music in the background. Let me just show you guys my live stream real quick. As you can see here, it's live. It started on May 4th and it's still running as of today. You'll notice here that you can go back up to 12 hours. I think YouTube just doesn't store more than 12 hours. And today we're going to talk about how I was able to make this live stream using, Vue.js, GitHub, DigitalOcean, OBS, YouTube, things like that. So let's get started with a brief overview of what I'm going to talk about. I just want to give a quick disclaimer that this talk isn't going to be super technical. I'm not going to dive into the nitty-gritty details of setting up DigitalOcean, installing Ubuntu, getting OBS working, and your remote desktop connected to that and all those things. The biggest reason is I'm not a DevOps pro or anything like that. This is my first time working in a DevOps environment, but I did link some resources down below. So if you want to get started with the exact same setup that I have, then you can follow the resources I linked in the description box down below. Disclaimer aside, let's look at what this talk is going to be about. First, I want to talk about why I made a 24/7 live stream. Then we're going to take a look at what is required for a 24/7 live stream, just like the essentials. Then we're going to take a look at how I was able to make my space animation as well as the music that I found to play on stream. And just as a quick refresher, this is the space animation I'm talking about. It has some stars and it has some meteors. Then we're going to look at my DigitalOcean setup for 24/7 live streaming. Now this is the important thing. This is the sort of meat of the talk, I would say. So most of you guys probably want to know how this is set up. Afterwards, we're going to look at pricing, how to reduce costs, what I could have done better. Then we're going to look at some DigitalOcean alternatives for people who want to engineer their own solutions, and also an alternative for those who don't want to build this whole server thing themselves. And lastly, I'm going to go over some tips for creators who may want to start a live stream themselves. So one last thing before we just dive into the talk is I want to give a brief introduction as to who I am. So my name is Suboptimal and I'm just a typical Indian software engineer. I've interned at a FANG company. I've worked at a tech unicorn for a couple of years, and last year in 2020 I quit my tech job to pursue YouTube full-time. So you can follow me on Twitter at suboptimaleng, and if you're interested in web development or developer productivity, so things like Vue.js, Tailwind, CSS, or VS Code and Vim, then feel free to subscribe to my channel because those are the type of videos I usually make on a weekly basis. So with that out of the way, let's get started with why I built a live stream. So why did I make a 24/7 live stream? Well, there's four real aspects to it. So the first aspect is the game dev aspect. I've always been interested in game development. I've always watched devlogs from people like Danny, Thin Matrix, a ton of different YouTubers who make cool game dev videos. And I've always wanted to get my hands dirty with some sort of animation. I thought it would be fun to make, so I just wanted to build some animation and have a cool way to show it off. I figured, okay, well, if I live stream the animation and it's continuously running, that would be pretty cool. Second, I also wanted to learn more about how to configure a virtual private server on DigitalOcean, how to set up Ubuntu on it, and just a ton of DevOps type things that I've never really worked with before as a full stack engineer. So the third thing is scalability. By trade, I'm a software engineer. When I think about what I'm building, I want to build things that scale. And as a YouTuber, making YouTube videos does not really scale because you have to consistently put new videos every single week so that people can discover your channel. Now, I figured that if I made a 24/7 live stream, YouTube would always recommend this live stream because, it would always be live. And so that would be a way to improve discoverability so that I don't have to put out videos every single day or every single week. I can, have this live stream and people can maybe discover my channel through this live stream, and it scales well because I don't have to do anything. I built this thing, right? All I have to do is monitoring the DigitalOcean droplet every day, every 2 days, something like that. Finally, I just thought it was a cool idea. Cool, so now that you guys have a small understanding of why I made this live stream, let's take a look at what are some of the essential things that are needed for the live stream, right? So a live stream tends to be resource intensive. So you need OBS, which is the same software I used to record this talk in. Basically, OBS is a video recording and streaming software that hook up with YouTube or Twitch, and you can either live stream or you can just record and edit and things like that. Live streaming is a resource intensive process that needs something like OBS to work. I also needed a GIF or a simulation, right? I need a GIF to play in the background of the live stream, and I needed to get some music to play. So we're going to take a look at how I was able to create this GIF and where I get my music from. The animation, the night sky animation that you guys see on the live stream is a Two.js animation. You can find this animation on my GitHub website, and you can also find the code in my space simulation GitHub repository. It's just a simple Two.js script. All I'm doing is rendering stars on the screen, and I'm moving them to the right. And if they, fall off the screen, then I add a new star, and then I move that star to the right. And that's just what this code is doing here. I create like 100 stars, and for each star, there's like this loop inside of Two.js, which is the framework I'm using to create this animation. And this loop runs every frame. So I think it's like 60 frames per second or something like that. I'm just incrementing the X and Y direction of the star so that it moves to the right. I also have something very similar like this for meteors. So basically this is the simulation. Think of this as the GIF that a user has. So for the Lofi Girl YouTube channel, they have that GIF, they drew it out. But for me, I wanted to have a simulation that kept constantly running. Basically all I do is I created this script and put it on GitHub, and then GitHub makes it easy to display your projects and so I displayed this project on my Vue.js blog. So if I go to suboptimaleng.github.io/space simulation, you should see this simulation going on right over here. And this is the simulation that I'm live streaming onto YouTube. So coming back to this slide, again, we just talked about the simulation or the GIF, right? So I made a simulation, but you could be using a GIF instead. And the next thing to talk about is finding music to play in the background. So let's see how I get my music for my live stream. So there were a few options that I could work with, right? There's Spotify, and then there's new creator startups like Storyblocks or Epidemic Sound. So if you sign up for them, and I think you pay like $10 or $20 a month or something like that for each of these, you can get copyright-free music to put into your YouTube videos or your Twitch streams. So if you sign up, they have a deal with artists or something, and you can get a ton of different music from these two startups. But I wanted to take the cheap route, right? I didn't want to run Spotify because, one, I don't even have Spotify Premium. So if I was running Spotify on the live stream, you'd probably be hearing ads right about now. And these two options are also not good for me because they also cost money. So I went with the last option, which is just downloading a ton of music from YouTube's audio library. Made a 80-minute WAV file, and then I'm basically playing that file on repeat for my live stream. All right, so now we talked about the simulation that I made and the music that I gathered. The next thing is going to be actually displaying this on a live stream and hooking everything up. So let's see how that's accomplished. So this is the architecture of my project, and let's break it down step by step. So first thing I did is, this is just my Mac, right? What I did was I went to DigitalOcean's website and I created a droplet. And I created this 16 gigabyte droplet. Once I made that droplet, from the terminal, I logged into the droplet and then I ran some commands. Now these commands are inside of the description box. Basically what I did was I created a specific user, and once I made that user, I logged in as that user again through the terminal on my Mac, and I installed Ubuntu Desktop, I installed OBS, and then I started the streaming setup. So basically, you're going to need to do a little bit of setup to get this working, but there's 3 really useful files that I've linked down in the description box below, and you can see how that works. So say you have DigitalOcean droplet and you got Ubuntu working on it and you got OBS installed. And now let's talk about how I was able to actually start the live stream, right? So inside of this desktop, I had to log into it. Now, logging in with the terminal doesn't work because I can't use the UI, because I want to be able to open up OBS inside of the desktop itself, but I can't do that through a terminal. So I needed to download a separate application, and this is called, I think it's called Microsoft Remote Desktop or something like that. And so now I quit the terminal application, and now I connect to this droplet with this Microsoft Remote Desktop. And as when I'm connecting through here, right, it takes me to the Ubuntu desktop, and oh my god, let me tell you guys, it is super duper laggy. I don't know how to fix that. I mean, I got the 16 gigabyte memory with 8 CPUs one, and it was still really laggy. Just as a quick reference for you guys, this is what that looks like. This is the Microsoft Remote Desktop, and it connects to my Ubuntu on a DigitalOcean droplet. I just have to click in here and log in, but I don't want to do that because currently I'm live streaming, and if I move inside of here or if I change anything in here, then it'll display like that on my live stream, and I don't want that to happen. So yeah, well, hopefully you guys kind of get the idea. Basically, just imagine that from your computer, you're going to remote connect to the Ubuntu desktop. It's going to be really slow, but you're going to get the Ubuntu UI. And what I did after I got that is I opened up OBS. Very slow, let me tell you. I opened up OBS, and I also sent the music files from my computer to this desktop. And you could do it in multiple ways. You could just store it on your drive, like maybe a Google Drive, and log in inside of your Ubuntu desktop, whatever. I use this app called Wormhole, and it's just an app that allows you to share files. And if you put a file in here, it'll give you a link that expires in like 24 hours or something like that, and you could send up to 10 gigabytes. So, I use this to share my music file onto my Ubuntu desktop. And so, I mean, now it's pretty obvious, right? Like, I have access to the music, I have access to my night sky animation, and all I had to do was, set that up with OBS. And once you set it up, it's actually really easy to start streaming. All you do is go to your YouTube section and you go to the Go Live part of it. And once you go to the Go Live part of it, there's a section at the bottom part where it's like stream key, right? And all you got to do is copy that stream key and put it into OBS, and OBS is going to immediately start streaming to YouTube. So setting that up was actually really easy. I didn't realize how easy it was to stream, but that's really straightforward. Let me give you guys a quick little rundown, just a quick summary of what we just talked about in this section, because I think this is the hardest part to kind of grasp. So first, inside of my Mac, I opened up the terminal, connected to the DigitalOcean droplet that I just made. I ran a couple commands to create a user, to create a Ubuntu desktop, to set up OBS, and allow for this Ubuntu desktop to do a remote connection. Once that was done, I could close out of the terminal for my Mac, so now I'm not connected anymore. And then I opened up Microsoft Remote Desktop and connected now to the Ubuntu desktop And this time I had the UI working, right? I can see the desktop this time. And so once I did that, anyway, I hooked up OBS, and I also sent the music again through the Wormhole app so that I could download that onto my Ubuntu desktop, and hooking up OBS and then streaming to YouTube. So that's sort of the quick little rundown of how this setup works. Now that it's working, I don't need to do anything, right? Like, I don't need to log in to my terminal anymore. I don't need to go to remote desktop anymore. It's just going to continue running for as long as I want it to. If I want, I can close out this DigitalOcean droplet, and that'll just destroy all these things, and I'll stop streaming. Or I could log in here, but it's a very slow experience, right? Connecting to a remote Ubuntu desktop on DigitalOcean droplet is just super slow, so I don't like doing that. That's just how this setup works. Now that we understand the architecture of our DigitalOcean droplet, let's take a look at how much this is going to cost us, because it's going to cost a lot of money. Let me just, I'll just tell you guys up front, you're going to expect to pay $60 to $100 to run this 24/7 live stream per month. So $60 to $100 per month. That is the price of running a 24/7 live stream. Now, the obviously the benefits could far outweigh the cost depending on your use case. If you're a game developer who has some really cool animation for your game, and having this cool animation displayed on your live stream 24/7 brings in more people, to watch your game and buy your game, then that would be very worth it, because you can easily make up the cost if maybe just 2 or 3 people bought your $30 game, right? If 3 people bought your $30 game, you're making about $100. So in that case, your live stream's worth it. For someone like me, it's a lot different, right? Because I'm not selling any products, but just having that exposure, maybe having people visit my channel, just see it, discover it on YouTube, that could be worth $100 a month, but most likely not. So let me just dive into the details and talk about how pricing works. Just for my specific use case, I needed to get the 16 gigabyte plan. So all the 8 gigabyte ones were out of the question. So this is the this is the cheapest general purpose. This is the cheapest CPU optimized. Anyway, these are all the cheapest plans, and except this one, but anyway, the cheapest plan and the CPU optimized one, you just can't run anything on it because it gives you 4 gigabytes of RAM, I think, and then you just can't run anything on that, because if you want to have an Ubuntu desktop on that, and OBS running at the same time, it's just impossible. So point is, I needed to get 16 gigabytes of memory for my CPUs, or I need to get 16 gigabytes of RAM, just because I'm running a simulation, and that simulation has over 100 separate things that are moving at 30 frames per second. So I needed something with a lot of CPU. If you're using a GIF, you can expect to go on the lower end at $60. So you might be wondering, well, wait, this is a $40 droplet. Why would I pay $60? And that's an interesting question. This is an $80 droplet, but I'm expecting to pay between $90 and $100, maybe even $110 per month. And let me tell you guys why. And that thing is because of these transfer rates. So when you are streaming from OBS to YouTube, it's going to cost about 2.7 megabits per second in transfer. So that ends up being 7 to 8 terabytes of data transfer per month. So as you can see here, this $40 plan or this $60 plan or this $80 plan offer different amounts of transfer for your projects. So if you do the math, you'll notice that 7 terabytes is about 2 terabytes extra, and DigitalOcean expects it to be about $10 per extra terabyte of transfer. So if you want to run it on this plan, which you could do if you didn't have a really CPU intensive simulation like I did, then you would be running at $40 a month plus $20 a month for the extra 2 gigabytes of transfer data. So that's just how pricing works inside of DigitalOcean. And so, now you might be wondering, okay, well, let's look at some alternatives for DigitalOcean because this is kind of expensive, right? So yeah, that's what I did too. And I came across a few options. So let's take a look at those. So let's take a look at these 3 options. First is this thing called OhBubble. And OhBubble is an alternative in the sense that it does everything for you. All you do is provide them with a GIF, and you provide them with a music that you want them to play, and they will, figure out how to do it for you, and they will set it up and they will stream it for you. And they actually have pretty cheap plans, right? They have plans at around, I think, starting at like $40 a month, and it looks like, there's like one very popular YouTuber who uses them. But the issue here is I don't really trust, other people to have my stream key or anything like that. So doing anything where another person managed how things got streamed onto my YouTube channel was a no-go for me. So now the other 2 options are having your own server. Now, I don't know if there's strong enough Raspberry Pis, but you can obviously get your own server and put it in your house and stream from there. I obviously am not going to do that. I just figured it would be more work and more setup. So the third option that comes down to is big tech options. So there are a few options. Obviously, you can go to like Google Cloud Provider or Azure. The only one that I kind of semi-researched was Amazon Lightsail, and it looks like they give you about 750 hours, which is basically a 1-month free trial. So you could do the same project and replace, this DigitalOcean droplet. You could do it on an Amazon Lightsail instance, and you would also get 1 month free. The issue there for me is I think that Amazon is, what is it called? It's very customer friendly, and it's actually a good place to do it. The only reason I didn't do it is because I already had a DigitalOcean account, and I looked at the pricing and it's almost exactly the same. They have almost the exact same rates as DigitalOcean, so it doesn't really make sense for me to get a new AWS account and configure everything there when I'm already a little bit familiar with DigitalOcean. So I kind of bit the bullet here because obviously I'm not getting 1 month free trial, but it is what it is. So the last thing I want to leave you guys off with is just some tips and tricks. If you are a creator, if you're an engineer or an artist or a designer or a musician or a game dev, and you want to start your own live stream, right? So like, what do you really need? So again, get some music, because music is very, very important. Now, if you're a musician, then you would ideally have like a 1 to 2 hour playlist of your own music. Or maybe you can even, if you're good enough at coding, you could even auto-generate music, right? Like I auto-generated this entire simulation, but maybe if you're good at coding or music or whatever, you can have your own music. Otherwise, I'd definitely recommend getting one of these options like Spotify, Epidemic Sound, Storyblocks. YouTube Audio Library is a great choice, obviously. I used it, but you're not going to get the best options for music here. So, you get it for free, but it's not the best option. And I don't know, maybe there's like better options. Anyway, get good music and pick a GIF. So I used a simulation, and because I used a simulation, it's going to cost me a lot of money, right? It's going to cost me the $80 plan. But if I did not use a simulation and I instead used a GIF and I repeated that GIF inside of OBS, I perhaps could have gotten away with this $40 plan and reduced my costs from $80 to $100 to from like $40 to $60, $70, right? So that's like $30 a month. And if you use a GIF, you can save a lot. If you're an artist, you might want to draw the GIF yourself. If you're a game dev, you might want to create a cooler simulation than this. This simulation is really bad if you ask me. Like, it's literally just dots on a screen that are moving to the right. So I'm sure you can do like some Minecraft simulation. You could do some crazy stuff, right? You could do some crazy art, right? Like even as an engineer, maybe you have an animation that's just displaying an A-star algorithm, maybe Dijkstra's, right? Just something cool. And you could just live stream it in the background, pick some music. There you have it. Obviously, getting this set up is a little bit complicated, so I would definitely recommend that if you're not too technically savvy, that you get a friend or someone. Honestly, I think maybe like DigitalOcean should set something up like this. If I was a product manager in DigitalOcean, I would go to them right now and be like, set this up so people can 24/7 live stream, because the options available right now are just really complicated, right? They make it super hard to like setting this whole thing up took me like 2-3 days. Hopefully you guys learned a thing or two about how complicated it is actually to 24/7 live stream, and how you can get started if you want to work with DigitalOcean or one of the other alternatives out there. And yeah, that's gonna be it for today's video. If you guys liked it, then leave a like for the YouTube algorithm. That really helps me out. Subscribe if you want to see more stuff on web development and developer productivity, and occasionally a tech talk like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.